Hi there. Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity, and Love. I'm your host, Michael André Ford, with a special guest, Alan Steinfeld, who almost needs no introduction. 30 plus years, 2,000 plus episodes for his series. It's been TV syndicated, but now on the internet, YouTube, go to his YouTube channel, New Realities. He has interviewed everybody under the sun, whether we're talking consciousness, spirituality, energy, this, that, cultural. Deepak Chopra.
Don't forget UFOs, Michael.
UFOs, cosmic cultures, you name it. His book above him there on the background, Making Contact, is out recently, and it is such a great mix of, we'll call it UFOologists. I always slaughter that word, but amazing group of people, including Alan's thoughts on the topic, his experiences. And we're going to get to all that in the show in just a second. First, Alan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. Great job you're doing in bringing positivity to the planet. We need definitely more people like you to, put out the good word and say there's so much here, so much excitement, so much possibility to live for.
Oh, thank you very much. And I've got to put it right back at you, which is you have journeyed, and we're going to talk journeying 4 different ways. Physically, you've gone around the world, you've interviewed a gazillion people. So each one of those connections, there's soul-to-soul contact. You've been exploring not just consciousness, the whole human path and our development. Yeah. You've seen a lot, done a lot, and we're going to hear what you are willing to share today about, where your conclusions are today, where are things headed. And that's, I'm sure, been in flux over the years as things have ebbed and flowed. Again, you've interacted with a ton of folks. New Realities, so youtube.com/@New Realities is the place to check out with his content. He has a lot of content. And again, you're going to see a lot of Deepak Chopra, Bruce Lipton, Joe Dizpenza, Lynne McTaggart, Hal Putart. I never can pronounce his last name correctly, but yeah, a lot of amazing folks. And again, the topics just run the gamut, but a ton of UFO stuff, Stargate, consciousness, remote viewing, you name it. And so we're going to let Alan do his own intro in just 1 second. But Alan, could you tell us a little bit about Making Contact, maybe your favorite part of the book or favorite experience that's recounted in it? Something personal, doesn't have to be your own though. What's your favorite part of the book story?
My favorite part of the book is the wholeness of the book. So it's like I interview many leaders, experts in the UFO field, and I create an arc within the narrative of the book. So we start from the external, from government cover-ups to why the secrecy exists and the technology that may be possible. So that's the that's the exterior. And then as the book progresses, we go more into consciousness. We go more into the interactions between humans and ETs. So we're slowly, for the reader unfamiliar with it, it's like boiling a frog in hot water. We slowly get them into the deep end, into the hot water. And because of the way I structured it, the concepts are revealed level by level. So yeah, you start out, you may not believe any of this stuff, but you start out with Nick Pope, who's really an outsider as far as consciousness and all that. He's worked for government, just investigating the sightings. And then you go into people like John Mack. Do you know who John Mack was?
Well, I know Nick Pope is the ex-defense minister and member, I can never pronounce the places right, but Rosensheim or whatever, that had a very good account of UFOs, a U.S. military installation in the UK, tons of other stuff. Nick Pope's all over the press.
Right. Nick Pope is the, like he calls him, the X-Files guy, but he doesn't deal with the interactions with ETs or the level of consciousness, which is fine because that's a good entry point into it. What's the government saying? What are they not saying? What do we suspect they could say? And so he covers that and why the government actually is denying the truth. So there's something out there, right? It's already been acknowledged. The government says, Barack Obama said in an interview, there's things out there, we don't know what they are, and we can't understand it. It didn't say the A word or the E word, off aliens or ETs, but that was implied that there's this higher level of consciousness. But as we progress in the book, the second chapter, the first chapter is Nick Pope. The second chapter is Grant Cameron, who says, if you've seen a UFO, or let's say even an angel or an interdimensional being, that is part of your psyche. There are no innocent bystanders. If you've seen something, you're part of the phenomena. So you see angels, you have that angelic frequency in you, Michael. So people see ETs or UFOs
or light beings.
Different. Yeah. What were you saying?
Or light beings like Seth, or just other light beings and the cast of characters at this end here. So
exactly. So this shows me, I mean, we could get back to the book, but it shows me that this 3D world is the simplest and most basic there is. And beyond that, there's multiple and multiple levels of reality. It's just like you've only been listening to one radio station your whole life, and someone says, you know, just have to change the dial, which changes the frequency, and you pick up other information. This is what you've done. You've changed the dial out of mainstream. I don't know how you did this. I think I interviewed you about it, but you say maybe there's more, and then you start to trust your instincts, your intuition, your awareness, your psychology. That's one of the things I do mention in the book, is that the psychological profession, psychiatry, have done a great service to people understanding themselves, but it's done a disservice in having people mistrust their own minds. So if you're voices, if you're seeing things, someone in the mainstream culture would say, oh, I must be going crazy. Someone in the alternative field would say, well, you're not going crazy. Maybe there are the realities that we have been closed off to, and the mainstream has purposely, I would say purposely, denied us access to our own multiple levels of consciousness, because if we have that, what Timothy Leary used to say, LSD is not illegal, it's not harmful, it just makes people think differently. So the mainstream is very much controlling the narrative of how reality should be. And if you step outside of it, and of course it's easier now with the internet, with multiple alternatives of points of view, but it's slowly cracking that mainstream hold on the nature of reality. But still, people doubt their own awareness. I mean, not to turn the interview around, but how are you, Michael, able to stand up and say, you know what? These things are real. I see them. I believe them. How did you do that?
And I'll answer that in just 1 second, but I wanted to mention like Aboriginal cultures, 10,000 years of already, they would not shrug or nod in acknowledgement, and they're already there. So it's Aboriginal Dreamtime, Rainbow Serpent, Native American, Canadian, you name it. It's just part of every one of those cultures. Joseph Campbell tying it all together. For me,
yeah, for you, yes.
Yeah, I dragged my feet like you've never seen. I would, I did everything but pay attention, slow down. And I still paid attention from time to time. I made progress. I'm still a deer in, instead of 100 million headlights, 99.7 million headlights. I saw my first 2 little red lights of UFOs when I was in my backyard of Austin, Texas with someone else. And I turned to angels immediately and I heard, don't worry about it. You're protected. Just like, don't go there now. You're good. And then the light beings took me 2 years. I had them touching my face in my closet of a new build, a new home, not other energy. And I just wasn't ready. And then one spring, I always invite people to have tea, conversations. Ton of light being people got on my calendar. And I finally, with a big, I just dragged my shoes. And when I finally get there, and I'm a fast teacher, slow learner, but light beings, not as much of a big deal anymore. Just bigger like whales, if angels are dolphins.
But you know what? You also trusted your instincts. You may have dragged your feet, but you knew there was a reality that couldn't be denied. And in a way, this is the crossroads we are at as a human civilization. The frequency of 3D reality is shifting, and angels are appearing, ETs, multidimensional beings, time travelers, ghosts, fairies, ascended masters. You know, we're starting to realize the landscape we really exist in. And that's why you mentioned indigenous cultures. Indigenous cultures didn't have this technology to distract them from the higher technology of biomechanics, brain technology, the neuroplasticity of greater awareness has been activated, but we've ignored it because of the society we live in is very mechanistically based. If it's not a machine, it can't be real. Well, your biology is the most incredible multidimensional machine that exists. It's not a machine, it's an infusion of spirit into form. So there you go. Right, spreading your wings. Yes. So that's the miracle here. The miracle is the everyday miracle that we are these fantastic, incredible beings that are able to perceive dimensions upon dimensional realities. So ETs are just one level or one aspect of this ecology of the mind, of the super soul, that is reaching out to us and say, yes, you're a big part of this reality, that we have the divine inside of us. So when I teach remote viewing, you know what remote viewing is? I'll explain it. It's the ability to project your consciousness beyond time and space. You could see what was happening in the past, the future, the present, anywhere on the planet with anyone you want to get in touch with. The only problem is you have to get their personality out of the way. So you can see, okay, what's your mother doing right now? Well, if you can get all the associations that you have with that person out of the way of your consciousness, which is the hardest thing to do when teaching remote viewing, is getting out of the way, then you will know, like that movie that won the Academy Award, Everything About Everywhere All the Time. That's such a current meme now within the remote viewing kind of community. Everywhere, anytime, all the time, whatever the name of that movie was. But that's the possibility and the reality, in a sense, that already exists for us. We have to get out of the way, but we've been so programmed to say, no, I am this person, this is my name, this is my personality, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. People get so identified with their beliefs and not their knowing. You know the difference between knowing and belief?
Go ahead, tell us.
Belief is conjecture. I call belief make believe. You can make yourself believe anything you want. Like, do you believe you're sitting in that room there? Or do you know that you're sitting in the room there? So if you're believing, you're not actually doing anything about except guessing. If you're knowing, if you have the knowingness, Michael, that angels are really manifesting to, it's not about belief. Belief is what religions and dogmas are fueled by, but knowing, or what the ancients called the gnosis, or direct knowledge of the thing as it is.
The experience.
The experience is knowing. Exactly. Thank you. Knowing, you have, if you have the experience, then you know, you can't argue with your experience.
Now, I call it allowing for all with a capital A, and that kind of covers as my blanket. You know how everybody gets with terminology. So I try to dumb it down and say universe, angels, light beings, and then allowing more, loving more, being here more. Let's go to a Seth quote that I think you're going to love. You know it. And then I'll say it one other way that an angel said. So Seth talks about how the entry point isn't external. It's not the class, the ashram, the this, the that, the Machu Picchu. It's your heart. And Peaceful Warrior has a deleted scene that talks about this as well. It's not going to be found outside of you. You've got to go through your heart, what you know, what your world was, what your license said, you know, all the identity roles, the stuff that you identify with that blocks. And then it's into a whole different reality. And again, we're kind of talking a transdimensional journey, multidimensional experience, or the other way around. Then when Angel said one time is, none of this is about knowing, the different type of knowing, the knowing that precludes possibility, the identification with stuff, physical objects, whatever. So it's not about knowing, but continued learning and expansion. And this is an angel named Dale who did the epilogue of my book. But he said, few humans actually appreciate the difference. So continued expansion, continued learning, continued love here. And I've picked that up in both making contact, but also just the way you're handling your panels. For the audience, Alan does a ton of travel, panels, interviewing others, interacting with others. He's on the board of the Friends of the Institute of Noetic Sciences organization. I think that's a nonprofit, and so on. So Alan, again, is at the intersection of a lot of stuff. And there are no random events, just to quote his book again.
Right. But, you know, I like what you're saying about the emanation from the self out to the world. So the world, in a sense, is a reflection of the self. So this is what one of my favorite quotes, Bashar, you know who Bashar is? Bashar says, the world is your reflection. So if you look in a mirror and the guy in the mirror isn't smiling, you don't go up to the mirror to try to change the external world.
Yep.
If you smile, the world smiles at you. So it's like we have to realize that in order to progress, I think it's what you're saying, we need to know there's so much more to us than just what our limited view of the world is saying to us. You know, there's this thing called mirror neurons.
Mm-hmm.
You know what they have us imitate the world out there. So if you see a person fall down, the mirror neurons are going to translate that action in your body, and you're going to feel compassion for that person. So mirror neurons start to activate after 6 hours after you're born. So if your mother smiles at you, your father smiles at you, you immediately smile back. You can even try that experiment on the street. You smile at someone, they don't know. The reflection, the mirror, the instinct is to smile back. The problem is, if you're a child and your parents are depressed or angry, that expression is also mirrored in the child, and that biochemistry starts to be encoded. So you just think that's who you are because that's what you're feeling, because that's what you were entrained with from the time you were born. The idea of this is to observe the emotions that arise in the body and not identify with them. It's not about denying them. You don't want to deny the feelings, but you don't want. So if you're feeling angry, and we all know people who are just waiting to be angry for something, or waiting to be depressed about something, or waiting to worry about something, that is a biochemical addiction to their hormonal system. So when those chemicals start to wear off a little bit, they're not even aware that they're looking for the next thing to be angry or sad or worry about. They're addicted to their own chemistry. This is Joe Dizpenza in his early days who used to talk about it. And so the way to get over your addiction, not you personally, or any addiction,
the audience and whoever,
it's okay to be happy. It's okay. That's not an addiction. That's a natural state of being, is joy and happiness. That is the sun behind the clouds. But if you are noticing that you're getting angry, all you have to do is observe it, not feed it. If someone gets you angry because they cut you off, if you feed the addiction by reacting, you're amplifying those chemicals, right? You're engaging those chemicals. So, you know, it takes a longer time. But if you can observe the chemicals and say, oh, there's that feeling again, but I'm not going to engage it, it slowly dissipates, because you're not the thinker of the thoughts, you're the observer of the reality. And it doesn't mean not engaging. You can engage, but you don't have to engage in the lower emotionalities. So you observe the instincts, because we're here to rise above the animal. Animals, you know, we're living in an animal body. That's your animal there. It has to sleep, eat, breathe, all those things, have touch, all those things. But you're not the animal. You're inhabiting the animal body with this higher, incredible facility of consciousness. that most animals don't have. Animals are evolved. The greatest capacity is their capacity to love. They only get as high as the heart chakra animals. You know, they can rise above their lower chakras, you know, their instinct for survival, sex, food, power, territory, and get to the heart. And that's the beauty of animals, when to have that, but they don't get beyond to this power of expression, this power of knowledge, the power of all-knowing consciousness. That's where we're at. But most people are trapped in the lower three chakras, and they do get to the heart. But our capacity, especially as we move from 3D, which ruled the animal nature, to 5D, which is an activation of the upper chakras, is to transcend the instincts and start to function on a level where we are the all-wise knowing intelligence. That's our destiny.
And I'll just say that translates to just a little more kindness, gentleness, slowing down a little. Still get lots done, but a little better interaction with humans, a little less violence. Alan's background, for everybody to know, back in the day, acupuncturist, masters in it, Chinese medicine out of Santa Fe, but practiced, you know, and then 30 years of, again, all sorts of studies, interacting with all different types of cultures. So I wanted to ask along the way for a quick practical tip to folks. This isn't quite what we were talking about. It's close. We got a lot of stuff going on in our lives. And if you can believe this, angels, no, Dull Knife, the Native American chief Dull Knife, who's passed over, unconditional love spirit guide, gave me this question to ask you, which is what's one of your favorite grounding tools that you've got in the chest that you pull out? You know, you got a little too busy on a panel, you met too many people. What do you love to do when you get too much energy going on and you want to settle down? How do you pump the brakes?
Well, first of all, I can never meet enough. I never meet too many people. I eat people for breakfast. I mean, I meet age with them. I go to a place. This is my Aquarian nature. But there are times I need to disconnect. So I go out to nature. I mean, nature is an infinite reservoir of multi-dimensional beings. The trees, the grass. I love walking barefoot on the ground. I love just sitting by a stream, or actually, I would say the ocean is probably my most favorite natural environment. Swimming in the salt water early in the morning, just taking a dip, sometimes really cold, but there's a clarity that comes to me in the early morning, just dipping in the ocean, dipping in, and I prefer it when it's warmer, but I'll jump in the middle of winter where it's like, but it's not my favorite thing to do, but I do love just being by the sea, sleeping on the sand, taking an afternoon nap on the sand to regenerate and ground, and hearing the ocean roar. It really is roaring. But also I love trees. I love grasses. I love mountains. The natural world, which we desperately have to preserve, is our ally, the earth. We can't divorce ourselves from the earth because we're living in these earth bodies. You're living inside the earth. You realize that? We're being fed by the earth. We're not being fed by plastic machines, although it may appear that way. That's where the food comes out of. I couldn't believe when I went to Greece, I actually saw oranges growing on a tree. Big, I thought they came from supermarkets, oranges. So it's like we've grown up in a culture divorced from the natural world, and that's really our problem. You know, humans want to conquer the natural world, and that's why we're in the toxic mess we are in. The extinction of species, the extinction of our own species, the poison air, the water, the plastic islands that exist everywhere in the oceans. I mean, this is one of the most incredible planets you can be on. I know, because I maybe. Oh, this has so much diversity and so much life and abundance and joy and beauty and nature. that we need to preserve that in order to preserve ourselves. But that's not the only reason. We need to preserve that because it's a reflection of us. And it holds the key to really who we are, the keys to the alchemy of our own existence. I mean, for years, hundreds of years, alchemists tried to duplicate nature by extracting gold from lead. But the true method of doing that is what the sun does every day. The sun creates elements. So how do we duplicate the sun? By emanating the light within us, which is the solar essence, to turn the lead of an ordinary world into the gold of joy and possibilities. That's the inner alchemy.
And when humans try to fix the world, if it's not done through a level of awareness, compassion, a broader perspective, we can often end up, it's a counterproductive effort. I can recall one angel saying, and this is the most provocative thing out of 40,000 answers in 11 years, but a Fiona, an angel who's Akashic Records, I call her a librarian, I don't do her justice, said, it's not up to humans to fix anything, let go. And it wasn't talking about Alan and I are starting a factory together. Should we not have 18 smokestacks? That wasn't the point. It was, there's a lot more layers involved in terms of consciousnesses and lots of beings and lots of bigger picture stuff. We should focus on what you were just saying, growing our sun here.
I do think we have to fix what we've actually corrupted. We have to fix the oceans. We have to fix toxic places we've created. I mean, that's angels are not going to fix those things for us. We made the mess here. We have to clean it up. You know, and we're not really going to get help in the making contact realm until we clean up our mess. Didn't your mother ever tell you you're not going to have company, friends over until you clean up your room? Well, it's like that. We have to clean up this mess, and it's still happening. I mean, I feel guilty every time someone gives me a plastic bag in a supermarket. Or
don't feel guilty, Alan. Don't do it.
No, I do, because we don't need to do that anymore. Glass was around for hundreds of years, which is made out of sand before plastic ever came on the scene. Yeah, of course, it's a little heavier. It's a little more inconvenient. It's a little more harder to transport, but it's worth the cost of the earth.
So aren't we getting a little bit of help if we go big picture on our mankind's development front? Aren't we getting a little bit of help at every level, every turn, quietly? Because if we don't learn it ourselves, we're not really getting the experience. So can you talk to us about mankind's development a little? How are you seeing it? And how did you see it 30 years ago versus 20 versus 10 years ago versus now with all the talk? You know, Pentagon's admitted a lot of stuff. It's almost incontrovertible, whatever the word is, that we're definitely not alone in the universe. And that was a big point in your book.
Right. That's definitely the crossroads we're at. The thing about the fact not being alone, it's not that there are aliens or ETs. That's not what the government is having problems with. So the problem with the ET phenomena is that the corporations don't like the fact that these ships are even here. Obviously, who's ever in those skies are not filling up their gas tank to get here. When we have access to 0-point energy, free energy, that completely changes the personal lives of people. It changes, we're not enslaved to corporations anymore. Imagine just having a little box in your house you can plug all your devices into, where we could desalinate the oceans. We have water, we have flourishing deserts. So much is possible, but the corporate elite, and I'm not like a major conspiracy person, but the corporate elite has to keep control in order to feed their pocketbooks. But that is changing because as we move into this next question, the people are taking the power back for themselves.
Sure.
We are developing our own systems. The last 3 years of COVID saw that we don't need cities. We have technology that allows us to decentralize, allows us to live in small communities. of self-empowered possibility to get off the grid, to develop solar, to develop wind. We have the technology where we don't need to rely on those bigger systems. They're like dinosaurs. And with the help of ETs or without, we are becoming self-sufficient, individualized human beings. And that's like across the board. We're getting away from the dogmatic religions that are like the corporations. They, the churches, all those religions are huge companies that depend on people to feed their pockets. So if we take the power back for ourselves, if we liberate ourselves and free our minds and acknowledge what we're capable of as divine, multidimensional beings, then we are rulers or kings or queens of our own lives. We are in control of our own lives. We create reality instead of letting reality being created for us, So the future is full of wonder, miracles, and possibilities as the individualized self emerges from the dark ages of control and domination. I talked to Foster Gamble. He says, we don't need any authority figures. We don't need anyone to tell us how to live our lives, who to give our monies to, who to obey. Of course, we need an awakened community to say, okay, that's your right. This is my right. We need mediators, according to Foster, who's a great guy, but we don't need control. This is a time for freedom. And if you read the introduction to my book, I don't have my book here.
And we can see it.
Book there?
I had the Kindle version.
Oh, well, on any version, it says that I quote this abolitionist, people who wanted to do away with slavery from 1844. This guy, Williams Ellery Jennings, he said, it's time for new possibilities to come, arise in the human being, new wants, new desires, a deeper yearning for truth is arising, and to dare is the highest wisdom. So isn't it great? Well, look at it's right in the introduction to the book, right? The very first quote. So to dare to be an individual, to dare to follow your dreams, whatever they may be, your inspiration, your desire, your bliss, follow your bliss. This is the basic teachings of Bashar. Follow your bliss.
And Joseph Campbell too.
Seek ye, or even the Bible, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and all things will follow unto you. So it's like, what is the kingdom of heaven for you? What is that? It's right here on earth. In the Gospel of Thomas, the disciples say to him, how should we live? And Jesus says, well, if you look to the sky, you'll be following the birds. If you look to the oceans, you'll be following the fish. No, the kingdom of heaven is within and without. So the kingdom of heaven is the essential nature of who we are. It's who we were born with. It's the pre-programmed, individualized, infinite human being that is incarnating into the world in order to, what the reason for incarnation is? My opinion, of course, there's millions of opinions, but what do you think we've come into this realm for?
Learning. It's our own expansion in terms of loving more, allowing more, would be my opinion on that.
Right. Absolutely right. And to make known the unknown, to create, to manifest the unknown realities, as Seth would call it. There's a 2-volume book on the unknown realities by Jane Roberts and Seth. The unknown realities is us being the fingertips of God manifesting. So if we're, let's say, made as in the similitude of the creator, we are creators. And what do we do as creators? What are we doing as creators? We're here to create. We're here to create from the artistic imagination that flows through us every single second of our waking and dreaming life. That means the creative force is our ultimate nature. William Blake said, the imagination is the human being. It is who we are. It's the primary process. So what I call the flowering of humanity is when we no longer are enslaved to systems, to dogmas, to governments, to politics, to corporations, but each of us drops into that innermost being and finds out what their passion is. And they create from that passion. And maybe seeing angels, it may be interviewing people, it may be singing songs, it may be teaching children, it may be dancing in the street. Creativity takes an infinite amount of forms. So, someone said the two hardest things in the world is finding out why you're here, the reason you're here, and to do that reason.
Yep. Getting started even.
What's that?
Getting started even down that path.
Well, to do it, find out why you're here and to do why you're here. That's what we're ultimately incarnated for. We're all here for a really divine reason of creative activity as the fingertips of the divine. We are the fingertips because we are here to make known the unknown. You want to know what that means? I mean, to you, what does that mean to you? Because I'm not saying there's a right definition.
Well, going back to what you said earlier, I believe Buddha's quote was, the way is not in the sky, the way is here. And so back to that Seth quote we talked about much earlier, it's not going to be found externally. It's found through your heart. And again, through some multidimensional stuff, but into a greater reality, into a greater world. And I did want to mention, when you mentioned unlimited energy, it's a great external example of what happens for transformations for society, mankind, how we just even go about existing. But right now, anyone can have any answers to any questions, any language, any dialect, and hear it the way they need to hear it. It's not ChatGPT or any AI. It's just that awareness you're talking about and connecting to the universe, if it's easier for people to stomach it that way. But unlimited answers, which would lead you to the unlimited energy. And that awareness is what gives you a break out of the rat race. So I know there's the rat race, corporations, and all the rest external. We all have that lot of thinking you talked about that you got to get out of your own way to do before you follow that unique life path, follow your bliss. And back to you, Alan.
No, thank you for that commentary. That's really great that we're really on the same page here. And positivity is the attitude we need to create the world we want to have. Most people, I was just talking to my mother and I said, don't you want to change? Don't you want to be better? She goes, no, I don't want to change. And that's people's choice. You can't force them, but change is the most exciting thing that can happen. Winston Churchill says, when someone said to Winston Churchill, you contradicted what you said last year. And Winston Churchill says, if you can't change your mind, you can't change anything.
Well, and your 2000 interview with Sri KALESHAR, which I've got it on my fun and like gentle videos list. It's like the last playlist on my YouTube channel, which obviously people are at if they're watching this show. But I've put both. You can share videos where you still get all the views and stuff like that. But your two beautiful interviews, part 1, part 2 from 2000 with Sri KALESHAR, you asked him about his parents and the tiger, and then what he's learned since then about not trying to jar their reality too much anymore. Just let them be. You know how it is in India. Respect your parents. And it's that way with everyone else too. And it doesn't have to be about Angels Universe. You're suddenly a New York Times bestseller. You go to your hometown and people aren't going to, it's not going to be the same the way you remember it from high school. People knew you a certain way before, you had some success. It's a shaking of your reality, which is what happens with the UFO experience, that forces you to face your own thinking, where you're putting your belief system, and realize, holy cow, it was way limited before. And then, with UFOs, that can unsettle you, or angels, or a near-death experience. It can shake things up to the point where even your relationships, immediate relationships, aren't the same. And I think you've talked about that plenty. So, Alan, take it from there. Tell us more about either the universe, UFOs, mankind's development.
I will tell you why I sought out the masters on the planet, because I knew they had information and answers and spiritual knowledge that I didn't have. So I have hundreds, maybe thousands of books in my apartment because these are my friends. Socrates, Plato, Lao Tzu. These are the masters who understood a little bit more than I have. And so making friends, which means reading their material, integrating their wisdom, increases me. But it then, yes, Plato, I'm glad you have a picture of Plato there. I don't remember him looking like that, but
You
it's
can see his
actually,
face in that ball of light.
I do see a face. Wait, that I actually do see a face. That's
Yeah,
incredible.
and tons of people talk to him. Just don't get a hug, get a fist pump. It's sweaty.
I see a face in that. Oh, I saw the face of Plato in that orb.
Yeah, and that's actually Plato. So later, if you want, we'll take a couple steps. I'll blow some stage. You can pick a couple figures, at least Sri Kaleshwar if you wish. All the other guests do it. You're under no obligation. Tell us about Sri Kaleshwar. You interviewed him in 2000, and again, that's found on the Fun Gentle video playlist. If you go about 20 down, there's a lot of ocean meditation on my YouTube channel, but it's such a beautiful, beautiful interview. I think it's like 28 minutes and 26 minutes. Alan does a wonderful job of getting in there, but you can tell Sri Kaleshwar is on fire in the zone here. And it's such a historical record, in my opinion, for a great Indian figure.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Kaleshwar used to say, I'm not a guru. I'm here to make you the master. He didn't want to be worshipped. He didn't want to be like bowed to. All he was fantastic. And the woman who introduces the video, who was married, married by Kaleshwar. He married us in an Indian ceremony, and there's the picture that you can have there. Is him marrying us after the wedding. She had a real sense for him before I did. She also introduced me to people like Marshall Rosenberg, and we went and see Amma and all that. But so she went to India, and I followed after. And she said, "You got to meet this guy Kaleshwar. He's really a master." And I said, "Okay, I'll go." I mean, I felt like I needed to go, and I walked into the ashram. And a lot of these Indian gurus think they're superior to Westerners, and a lot of the interviews I've had with these gurus are like this, it's sort of inner argument for, oh yeah, you can't tell me anything because I'm the guru and you're the disciple. And that's what's wrong, I think, with that dogma, because they don't expect the equality. But I was not quite expecting that from Kaleshwar, but so I go into the ashram, and we just look at each other, and there's a recognition. He smiles, I smile, and it's as if we know each other's soul in that minute. We know there's not a hierarchy, there's a connection on that level. And he actually came to visit me in my New York City apartment. He climbed 6 flights of stairs to stay in my apartment. He left his his clothes there for me. I mean, I left him alone there. He did his blessing, and so he was a friend. His other disciples were couldn't understand our connection because they're like into the worship, and I'm just into, hey, Swami. We called him Swami. Let's sit down and talk, and he was an incredible manifester. I mean, he would manifest vibhuti. And so, yes, right out of thin air, he would cough up Shiva lingams out of his body, and he taught other people how to do that. I didn't see this, but he made this cross of Jesus bleed blood. Paula is the woman in the picture there, who I married, who I spent 10 years with. We traveled all over India. She remained a great friend. So anyway, Paula was a great yogi herself, visionary. She did 1 million repetitions of one mantra. It took her 3 months to do it. This is one of Kaleshwar's mantras.
Wow.
So Kaleshwar was a great teacher. He's still a great teacher. Still lots of students. And
did you have a mantra, a mudra you walked away with, one that you can share, or some other practice from your interactions, time in India, anything that would, going back to the audience a little?
The Gayatri mantra into, Om Bhuvas Suraha Tat Savador Vayenyo. I forgot, I haven't done it in a while, but the Gayatri mantra is a really key mantra, Om Shiva Om. You know, Shiva was a big person for KALESHAR, and so was Jesus. Actually, Jesus, he had a little Jesus statue in his ashram. You could go to his ashram now, just north of Bangalore, and feel the energy. He's actually buried in the Dwarkamai. He's there, and supposedly, I haven't seen that, but there's Amrita pouring out of that place, like this golden honey liquid that's just pouring out of his samadhi site.
Yeah, no, if you had asked me, I'd have to know Satori, Samadhi, half this other terminology, or be introducing people to figures from India like Vishnu, Krishna, Ganesh, Lakshmi, Rama, but not Shiva yet. Shiva's come up a bunch, and one day I'll have somebody who wants to meet Shiva. They get to full on see, so they get that direct interaction.
Shiva is the ultimate. Shiva is the ultimate. So anyway, KALESHAR was a great gift. He was a great Swami, great yogi, great teacher of the ancient ways. So I've been around the planet exploring different masters, because each one is an experience I was able to learn from. Even people like Bruce Lipton, what a master of science. J.J. Hurtak's a good friend of mine, the Keys of Enoch, Hal Puthoff, Russell Targ. There are people who are genuine masters. You know, someone you should really, not should, but Lorna Byrne. Have you met Lorna Byrne?
I got to take her spot at Omega last summer. She couldn't make her 3-day event, so they brought me in with a month's notice, and so that's the closest I've come.
Well, she's great. You should have her on your show. I'll try to set that up for you.
Sure, we'd love that.
I should go soon, but it's really fun talking to you, Michael.
Can I blow you some sage smoke and also put Joy's photo up, put Sri Kaleshwar's photo up? And when we get to Sri Kaleshwar, if you want to allow for a little bit of India to come into the room and see if he's got a message for us all that is just a loving, I describe him as love on an Indian breeze. I just think he's the gentlest, easiest figure, but with your permission, and for people, we did this before the show. But is it okay to blow some more sage? This will all be,
of course. Okay. I just want to tell people that my book, Making Contact, is a real spiritual investigation into the nature of the UFO reality. So you get that on Amazon, you get that in bookstores, Barnes and Noble. So and you can email me at newrealities@earthlink.net if you want a question. And also, I will even give people, if they email me, the introduction to my book. If you email me with introduction gift in the subject matter, I'll send you the introduction. You can see if you like the book for you and it's something you want to buy. So let's do this, because someone is waiting for me.
His book really does talk about the nature of reality and how just letting go a little bit on thinking pays off immensely. Okay, a little bit of sage for Alan. Alan's in Florida right now, and I'm blowing it from San Antonio, Texas. Alan, are you getting it?
I'm getting it. Thank you.
Okay. And then with your permission, I'll stub this out real quick. I'll put Joy the Angel's photo up. You can hear one thing, get a hug, maybe catch an ocean smell that's not Florida, the Atlantic, but something you wouldn't mind. Here we go. Okay, here's Joy the Angel. And if you want, you can put a hand out or just get a whoosh down your back, whichever way you prefer.
I got the heart opening there. Thank you. The love. I get it. It's pure love. Pink rose, quartz.
Oh,
yeah, got it. Got it. Thank you. That is a rush. I felt that, Michael. Thank you.
Okay. And then Sri Kaleshwar, give me 1 second.
As I remembered him, Kaleshwar, yes, that is what he looked like. He had this incredible head of hair and light out of his eyes. And he was a young master. You know, they called him the Screaming Swami when his parents were at the Sai Baba ashram. He had tools. And there's a whole story about how he became a sort of higher being when he met not Satya Sai Baba, but the Shirdi Sai Baba.
Yeah. So if you want, just leave your eyes on him and hear one resonating love message for us all. A little more gentleness, that type of thing.
I'm getting from Kaleshwar is that you are joy, meaning me, but also everyone listening to say that you are joy. So he's emanating joy, and you are joy, and we are joy, and I am joy, and you personally are joy.
And final one, because I know you've got to go, but here's actually the Sai Baba.
Shirdi was honored by the Hindus and the Muslims. He was a real master of consciousness and the one who initiated KALESHAR years later. So Shirdi is always giving me that groundedness. He's always saying, you know, if you go to Shirdi, the town of Shirdi, he's buried there. He will talk to you if you go.
Yeah.
He will say, he said to me, don't worship me.
And if you want, Alan, last act, and thank you for today, catch a little bit of incense from an Indian temple that there's no way that could be happening, except it is. Have him bring it in.
That is the rose incense that, you know, Amma burns.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you for being here.
Meditate on Shirdi Baba. You'll have a lot of wisdom, of compassion. He was so humble. He lived by a fire that has still not gone out. If you go to Shirdi, India, that fire that Shirdi lit is still burning.
I love it.
I'll talk to you soon. Thank you,
Michael. Thank you very much, Alan.
Talk to you. Bye.
Take care.